Ladies and gentlemen, we welcome those of you who are online and those of you who are here in person attending the funeral of Tanya, Leah, Temkin. Rabbi Moshe Wolf from Cheder Lubavitch will be officiating. This time he's going to approach Tanya's brother David to perform the ancient ceremony of Kriya, and we're going to ask the gentleman from the cemetery to lower her casket into her grave. For those of you who are here, please take a moment to be sure that your cell phones have been set to the quiet mode.
We'll ask David to come up. We will begin the service with Psalm 23. First page in your little booklet. I will begin in Hebrew and then we'll read it together in the English. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai Roi Lo Echsor, V'Le'ez Tesha Yaritzeni, Amen Minachos Yinahaleni. Nafshi Yeshovev Yancheni B'Maglei Tzedek L'man Shmo. Gam ki Elech B'Geitz HaMoves Lo Ira Ra Ki Ata Imodi Shiftecha Umishantecha Hema Yinachamuni Taroch Lefanai Shulchan Neged Tzororoi Yishantav Hashem En Roshi Kosi Rivaya Ach Tov Chesed Yedefuni Kol Yemei Chayoi V'Shafti B'Veis Adinoi La'orech Yomim. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. My friends, we are gathered here today to mourn the passing of Tanya Temkin, Dana Leah Bas Reb Meir, beloved sister and sister-in-law to David and Lois Temkin. By divine providence, we find ourselves here today on the auspicious day of Shushan Purim Katan, a day that is celebrated as a mini holiday. Because of that, we do not recite Tachnun, and likewise, our rabbis tell us that we do not prolong in eulogies or recite the typical funeral prayers of El Molei Rachamim and Tzaddik Hadin. Therefore, I will keep my remarks brief. During the month of Adar, we celebrate one woman, Esther. Esther remained a fiercely independent Jewish woman, surrounded by those whose values did not line up with her own. And we celebrate the great miracle of Purim by helping the poor and those vulnerable around us. The great mitzvah of Matanot Le'Avyonim, giving gifts to the poor, is a mitzvah unique to this holiday alone. And feeding the poor as well during the meal of Purim. It is not by chance that Tanya is being laid to rest in Shushan Purim Katan. Tanya was a woman of many great qualities. She was so deeply honest and so full of integrity. She was a highly intellectual woman, a truly brilliant person, a talented writer, an accomplished artist, and an illustrator. But she was fiercely independent as well. In her early 20s, she traveled west and spent the rest of her life in Berkeley. She earned 2 master's degrees, one in city planning and one in public health. But these degrees were not coincidental. It really spoke to what she cared about most: people. All people. In that vein, she specifically fought for the underprivileged, the homeless, those who fought extreme poverty, and of course, a dedication to those who battled with mental illness. She made it her mission to be their voice and fight for them when they couldn't find their own voice. Perhaps her independence was most underscored in her pro-Israel stance. She was very vocal about that, although that was completely out of sync for where she lived and the people she came in contact with. She knew right from wrong and was not afraid to say it how it was, no matter who was offended by that. So many attributes, so many accolades, but perhaps one attribute that describes her best is a lover of people. Although Tanya had plenty of troubles of her own, she had a burning desire to alleviate human suffering. After she was diagnosed, she went to work for cancer research. How could she not? She had eyes that penetrated beyond the facade of a person's body or their place in life. She saw each individual as a person who was worthy of a full life, no matter their personal struggles or situation, or whether it was self-inflicted or otherwise. We were all dismayed to learn of Tanya's passing last week as she succumbed to her illness. The Jerusalem Talmud teaches, Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel said, "One does not build monuments or mausoleums for the righteous. Their deeds are their remembrance." A life is not measured by the breath that one takes or by the destinations that one travels to. Life is all about one's accomplishments and the mark that one leaves on the world, the impression that one leaves on each individual one comes in contact with during their lifetime. Tanya's legacy is just that. It is through her good deeds that Tanya will forever live on and be remembered. Tehei nishmasa tzura b'tzara chaim. May her soul be bound in the bond of eternal life.
Thank you very much. I also have some comments which I hope will be brief. Now, a lot of what I want to say, Rabbi Wolf has already said, perhaps because we were both looking at the same person. So these are sort of vignettes and remembrances I have, and I try to do it in a story style, so hope you bear with me. Okay. Louder, right? Louder, right. Once upon a time, long ago, perhaps around 1950, there lived in Chicago a 7-year-old boy who felt himself to be a prince. He had the run of the castle, the undivided attention of the king and queen. Everything was going swimmingly. Then, one autumn day, boom, life changed dramatically. One autumn day, everything changed dramatically. I was now a big brother to a little girl, and what a dynamo that little girl was. I had the pleasure of watching Tanya taking in the world. Tanya caught on to everything quickly, always analyzing, reading and reading and reading. It was well known in our family that she could read before she could speak. She also inherited a remarkable artistic talent from her mother, who was an accomplished artist. And that skill bore fruition in a series of cartoon strips, caricatures of the various people whom she encountered in her life.
We want to hear you.
In her life. My cousin Jonathan he wrote this to me yesterday. I haven't seen Jonathan or spoken to him for over 30 years, but he wrote, Tanya was so creative. I wish I had kept some of her handcrafted comic strips. So droll. Yes, Tanya would draw these very funny comic strips. A lot of them featuring me sitting on the floor in my robe smoking a cigarette. That's how I looked. At such a young age, she was about 7 or 8 when she started to do these. These caricatures reveal Tanya's precociousness in assessing the world with a jaundiced eye, which can be both a blessing and a curse. And then Tanya started to write. And there is no one who has ever read anything Tanya has written, whether it be for a speech, a pamphlet that she created for work, or even a Facebook post. No one has not been blown away by her literary skill. She moved to California in her early 20s to find her own way. So our adult relationship was mostly through family visits. Many years she came to visit with us twice a year, including the Seders, which was wonderful, in which she participated enthusiastically, unlike others who, whatever. And we had many long talks on the phone. Although in different cities, in such different cities they were, they don't call it the People's Republic of Berkeley for nothing. We were always able to share in Tanya's triumphs and defeats. Lois and I came to Berkeley and Tanya received a double master's degree in city planning and public health from the University of California. Those particular majors, as Rabbi Wolf mentioned, city planning and public health, tell you something of Tanya's deep commitment to people and community. She didn't love people merely in the abstract. She loved them in their own person. And as Rabbi Wolf mentioned, even though she was part of the Berkeley culture, caring for community and trying to uplift the downtrodden, she had no patience for anti-Semitism or anti-Israel rhetoric, and that made for very strained relationships. But Tanya, of course, she was involved in the planning, so she had to tolerate what she had to tolerate. But it was a great strain. Rabbi Moshe Wolf mentioned something about a week ago that has the ring of, for lack of a better word, beauty. He said that when a soul has left this world, and this world is a world of much deception and much deceit, that soul now dwells in a world of total truth. And so if that soul should hear anything that might be entirely true or accurate, it causes the soul great pain. Tanya was a person so varied and complex that I only want to say a few things that I hope would make her soul smile. Tanya was a contradiction of fear and fearlessness. She was not a big girl. She was slight and thin of frame her entire life, like me. But she had the heart of an outdoor adventure explorer. As many of you know, I won't go near an airplane. Tanya used to go skydiving. She finally had to stop after several years because she suffered a detached retina. The doctor said she had to stop. Before she came ill, she traveled the world over and loved to camp outdoors and to hike. And some of these hikes were on the most treacherous of trails. Jackie, where are you? Jackie was her guide. Even though Tanya was so thin, she absolutely loved food. She loved eating it, talking about it, and most of all, making it. The spicier and the more exotic, the better. She became a skillful and imaginative cook. She knew all about the herbs and spices, many of which she grew in her own garden. On Monday nights, which was our special talking nights, when Lois was with her dining group, Tanya and I would talk, and she would tell me what she was preparing for dinner. There were such, to me, complicated dishes with elaborate ingredients, no doubt took a long time to prepare. She not only graduated, gardened, but being Tanya, she also learned about the art of landscaping and did all sorts of things that involved things like water retention in drought-ridden California. She built irrigation ditches and all those garden structures that I don't quite understand. She would work for hours in that garden, and it was something she loved to do, and she made the garden a very special and inviting place. The conversations that Tanya and I had, the best ones, in the early morning hours when she was here on a visit, whether we talked about family, politics, religion, or work, were some of the most interesting hours of my life. I was talking to a person who really understands the nuances of things and the nuances of people, especially myself. There was nothing surface with Tanya. I have difficulty in believing that they will not come again. Thank you.
just want to say one thing, because Rabbi Wolf has already told you how involved Tanya was with the organizations that she worked for. After her first treatment, Tanya tried to go back to work. It wasn't working, but then she became a volunteer for the organizations for ovarian cancer. And I think at first, when she was feeling better, she was the most creative and happy. And because of that, she established this wide, connections with colleagues and everything. And thanks to Laura Horwitz, who is sitting right here, who, by the way, Tanya adored. And I think not only were they like sisters, they were soulmates. And Laura is now managing the Facebook accounts and everything, so she's forwarding them to me, and I thank you so much. And you can't imagine, I get dozens of these posts which say how Tanya changed their life, how impactful they were, how she made. And I just want to tell you one that I read this morning. A woman named Ruth said that she met Tanya at a conference in Washington, D.C., and everyone was introducing themselves and saying, oh, I have BRCA1 and BRCA2, we'll explain. And Tanya came up and she said, I was born in a little cabin in the woods to very poor people. I don't know how I got this. And everyone was kind of stunned. And then she burst out laughing. She said, no, I just want you to know that we don't have to identify ourselves by the disease. We should identify ourselves by who we are and where we came from. We're more than this. And so I just want to say that we learned a lesson from Tanya. Even in dark times, even in sad times, we can be impactful on people's lives. And she's gone too soon. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, this time we're going to ask the cemetery gentlemen to cover the vault. Rabbi Wolf will place some ceremonial earth from Israel into the grave. You should know that during the Sahara process that was also done as well. While the gentlemen are preparing the grave, for those of you who are here, the information's on the service folder, but memorial contributions to Force, Facing Our Risk of Cancer Empowered. That information, as well as the charity about Ovarian Cancer Research Alliance, it's on the service folder. For those of you who are joining us via live stream, all that information is on our website. Following the burial here, we're going to form a shura, a double aisle. Everyone will form, we'll do it in the street because it's safer, there's no ice there. And David will walk through. That's when we offer the traditional words of consolation. You'll find those on the back of the service folder, where Rabbi Wolf will lead everyone in the Hamakom. Ladies and gentlemen, as soon as we move the track, we're going to invite David first to place earth into the grave, then everyone else can. The tradition is to place 3 measures of earth without handing the shovel from person to person, so then you place the shovel back in the mound. Then the rabbi will do the concluding prayers, and then Kaddish, then the Shura. But we're going to try to do as much by hand, then the gentleman with the tractor will cover, and then we'll continue. Folks, just be really careful, okay? Come on either side. Folks, you can come on either side. You know what? There's a little bit softer earth over here.
Thank you. You know what they called us this morning? They told us it was too windy to set up a tent. Oh, wow. So, can you believe that? I mean, I thought, oh, yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, once you've placed earth in, please come back to over here by the chairs. Just do a little. Ladies and gentlemen, once you place the earth, please come back by the chairs. We're going to have the gentleman from the cemetery close the grave.
7 years old, Orthodox. My grandfather was 72, baker, and was in Hungary. And Heart Basket is down there, and he opened it up to verify the body. I thought we got to do it in here because Orthodox.
That's a deal. That's a deal.
That's a very old world mineral.
Yeah, anyway, they opened it. So I looked down there and looked at it, the phallus and all that. And my father pulled me out and gave me such a slap on my face for looking. And I hated him ever since. And all my life, I was 7 years old, now I was 93 now. I never forget it.
Folks,
Really.
all the way to the
And my
right,
mother didn't say
to
anything.
your left.
So all my life, I hated men and I feared women. Ever since the slap, why? I couldn't figure it out why. He was a gave son. And David, I want to show him. I mean, not, David, he always talks about his father used to be. I'm gonna check. Check. I'm check. Yeah, we check. The what?
What city? What shtetl?
Shahi. It's right on the border, Hungary and Czechoslovakia. So it's for dual languages. I have to tell somebody the story. Remind me very much of
I
it.
appreciate you sharing with me.
Yeah.
Very careful.
Yeah. I'll never forget it. I mean, a 7-year-old slapping in the face, looking at the body. It's a Matia to look at. The guy. He was in a group of 50 people, and I was mechanic. And he was his closest telegraph. Okay? And he took him in the war and all that, they brought him out, and they're going to go to Germany. The father says, I'm never going to go to Germany. He and his friend went AWOL. No, all 48 survived. All 48 survived, and he and his friend disappeared nowhere. I think probably the Germans or the Russians, somebody. I mean, they got just shot at me. They didn't know. He died of course. I didn't cry. My uncle, I want to show you. When he died, I broke out in my father couldn't shut up there because of that situation. Am I crazy for feeling
No,
this?
you feel it, you feel. That's so powerful. Maybe we can do a little bit more, Nancy, opening a little more.
My aunt, the story is that there's some family thing happened that he slept my aunt.
Ladies and gentlemen, if I could ask everyone to gather around the chairs, as close over here by David, as Rabbi Wolf continues with the burial service.
We will conclude with chapter 16 in the Hebrew, followed by the Kaddish. Michtam LeDavid Shomreni El Ki Chasisi Voch. Amart Lelehim Adinoi Oto Tovasi Bal Olecha. L'Kdoshim Asher Ba'aretz Hema V'Adirei Kol Cheftevom. Yirbu Atzvosam Acher Mahoru Bal Asich Niskeya Midam Uval Esa Eshmosam Al Sfasai. Adinoi Menas Chelki V'Chovsi Ata Tomech Goroli. Chavolim Nafluli Banaimim Af Nachlos Shafar Aloi. Avorech Es Adinoi Asher Yotzani Af Lelos Yisruni Chil Yosai. Shivisi Adinoi Lenegdi Samid Ki Mimini Bal Emot. Lachein Samach Libi Vayogo Kvodi Af Besori Yishkon Levetach. Ki Lo Sazov Nafshi L'Shol Lo Sitin Chasidcha Liro Shachas. Todieni Orachaim Sovas Machos Espanecha Neimos B'Mincha Netzach.
Is Gadal, Bis Gadal Shemei Rabba, B'Almadi V'Rektorisei, B'Anlichma Husei, B'Chayechon, B'Moch, B'Chon, B'Chayda, B'Bis Yisrael, B'Galo, B'Smekare, B'Yuro, Amen, B'Shmei Rabba, B'Yomaya, Yisvarak, B'Ishtabad, B'Yisvar, B'Yislam, B'Yisnasei, B'Yisadar, B'Yisalam, Shmei Korashak, B'Chon, Leah McCall, because she wants to teach because of the Kabasa Tami Ram Biamabi, Amen. Eshlam or Abba Michamai Lakaima Lani of the Alcohol Israel, Bibro Amen. Sashalom Bibro, Yasa Shalom Alenu, the Alcohol Israel, Bibro.
Ladies and gentlemen, if I could ask everyone other than David to go on the street. We're going to form the Shura on the street. It's safer. And then David will walk through and you may offer words of consolation. Also, after that's done, if you kindly take a moment to be sure that you sign the register book. This time we're going to turn off the live stream. We thank the many, many people that have joined us. I know the family is extremely appreciative.